Welcome back, everyone. I hope I'm audible to all. Apology for the delay, guys. So, we are in the RESTful services. We have understood some of the concepts. In today's class, we shall talk on the important concepts again. The first topic which I would like to highlight here is about the scopes. Let's talk first scopes, followed by the HATIOs, and followed by actuators, HTTP status code, and request response, application.properties versus application.yaml. So all the important topics is what we need to discuss in today's class. Okay. HATIOs. Then we should talk about application.properties with the YAML files and the actuators and other things. So can we start the journey, my dear friends, if all of you are there? Stream is solid. Yes, no, maybe. All of you? Great. When it comes to scopes, I would like to take the existing application and use this concept. Spring Boot supports, there are totally 4 scopes of any bean in the Spring Boot. Number 1 happens to be the singleton, prototype, followed by request and the session. Okay. Singleton, prototype, request, and session. The default behavior of all the beans which are getting created, whether it is a predefined beans which are there to support you, excuse me, or whether whatever beans you are creating for your project, the default scope of everything is singleton. Then we have something called as prototype. Sorry, guys. I hope all of you listen. Okay. Then we have prototype, request, and session. One by one, we shall be discussing. To start with, I would like to discuss, singleton, which is a default behavior of every bean. I would like to open the application, which we have done it already. Let's go and work with this API, which we had created for our own applications. Okay, you need not to add any extra dependencies or anything, guys, in order to use or make help of this. If you want to apply these scopes, I would like to open any of this class in that matter. Okay. I would like to go back and maybe let's take this. Okay. I would like to just go and request. Okay. I want you to understand here, everyone in the class. Whenever the beans of these classes gets created, constructors gets called. All of you are okay with it? I mean, do you all agree with this? Whenever any beans gets created, constructor will be invoked. Correct? I will say here tourist service bean created. That's the story, right? I would like to go back here and maybe I'll go back to my API, which we are creating here. Very important topic, guys, with respect to interviews. And I want all of you to focus. I'm going to take the code which we have developed because there's no point of writing this because this can be applied to any application. Okay. I would like to say a public. Within this, I would like to just give one message here. I would like to say here, bean created. Bean created. Done. I'd like to save this. As all of us knows that by default Spring's boot follows application context container or the bean factory, my dear friends. What is the default IOC container with Spring Boot allows? Is it application context or bean? Application context. Application context supports eager loading or lazy initialization. Eager or lazy? It's eager. We have seen it. Now, since I have applied stereotype annotation at the top of these classes, whether you say whether you're using or you're not using that, beans of these classes will get created. If I have to right click here, run as the Java application. Kindly see here, every one of you. See, tourist bean API also created. This is also created. Because we are applying the stereotype annotation. All of you are okay with it? Yes, no, maybe. Every one of you? Great, great, great. Now, my dear friends, doesn't matter how many times you're using, still the beans is getting created. Now, one more point is that the default scope of all the beans is singleton. What do you mean by that? I will tell you. Before that, I'll do one thing here. Let me just go back and create something here with just to show you one message. Maybe I'll say here some service. Or maybe Telesco service. Something. Okay. Telesco service. I want everyone to understand here. As all of you know, I'll go to the top of the class. I will just apply the annotation called as a service. All right. I will just go here. Of course, third week of January, we are starting with DevOps with AWS course, which is DevOps in AWS, real-time use of DevOps on AWS. In the industry, what we use, not specific to certification, real use of these things. From absolute scratch, no prerequisites, Git, Linux commands, everything will be taught from absolute scratch for 4 months. It's a weekend batch. Finally, we got the approval from the industry experts also. Some messages I would like to just write here, guys. Some messages. Or I'll do one thing here. I'll go back. I will say here maybe private. What is that name of the interface? Tourist service, I guess, right? Tourist. It's a weekend batch. Third week of January. Great. I would like to go back here and say auto inject here also. Great. I want everyone to observe here, guys. How many implementation classes are there for this interface? How many implementing classes are there for this tourist implements? Tourist service. How many are there? Only one, right? Everyone? All of you? So at the time of dependence injection, IOC container, does it have any confusion, ambiguity? Any confusions or ambiguity? No, it doesn't have. I'll go back to my API. How many times I'm asking my Spring to inject the tourist service object here? Here one time I'm asking. And here also, how many times I'm asking? One time I'm asking. All of you agree on this? So 2 times I'm asking my Spring to inject implementing class of this interface, which is tourist service. Please inject tourist service here. Please inject tourist service here. 2 times, right? That means I'm using the the tourist service class implementation for 2 times. I have asked my Spring IOC container, please inject the implementation here. Please inject the implementation here. Totally 2 times. I would like to go back here. I'll say right click, run as the Java application. Let me stop this. Then I want you to observe here. Even though, guys, are you able to see here? Even though you are using this for 2 times, how many beans of tourist object is getting created, guys? Even though 2 times you are using, how many beans? Only one. So that so that object is getting used multiple times. That object is getting injected multiple times. But how many beans Spring is maintaining within the IOC container? Once. So the default scope of all the beans is singleton. Of all the beans is singleton. If it is a singleton, first of all, it supports eager initialization. Second, how many beans, guys? One bean per IOC container. Doesn't matter how many times you're using these beans. How many beans are getting created? Only once. I would like to go back here to my tourist service. I will change the scope. In order to change the scopes, there are 2 ways you can do it. Number one, simply go at the top of this, write scope. Within this, you specify prototype. I'm changing the scope from singleton to prototype. The default scope of all the beans is singleton. Right now, I'm making it to prototype. Either you can do like this, or there is one more way to do it. You can just say scope. You can use the enum also within this. I can say here configurable bean factory dot. You can see, guys, prototype singleton is there. I would like to go to and say prototype. Either you can say like this, or you can say like this. Both of them are same. Some of the code files you might open, you might see something like this. It is same as what you have written here. There is no difference in that. Okay, already, everyone? Now I would like to save this. I have one question to every one of you. What is the current scope of tourist service? Is it singleton or is it prototype? What is the current scope of service class? Prototype. Great. I would like to go back here to my tourist API. I will not ask for auto wiring. Save it. I will not even ask here also auto wiring. Save it. Okay. That means whatever bean will be created, the tourist service, is it getting used currently, guys? If no auto wiring means no dependency injection. Is that object getting injected somewhere? If auto wiring is not being used? All of you? No, right? Everyone? I would like to comment this scope also. If I am not getting use, I'm not using. Scope also is right now I have commented. I have commented means what is the default scope of this every bean? What is the default scope of this class right now? Singleton. Am I using this object anywhere, guys? Am I injecting this object anywhere right now? Am I injecting here? No. No auto wiring. Am I injecting here? No. I'll go back here, right click. I'll say run as the Java application. Is this bean getting created? Whether it is getting used or not, is it getting created, guys? It is getting created. That means eager initialization. And if you use for multiple times, which we have seen already, guys, multiple times you're asking for dependence injection. How many beans are getting created, guys? How many beans even for the multiple times? Once. All of you? So about the singleton, it supports eager initialization. One bean for container, doesn't matter how many dependency injection. How many times you're using this object? Is this matter clear to everyone? Now I would like to go back to this tourist class. I would like to say yes, scope, either using string type or using the enum you can specify. I would like to save this. After saving it, let me stop and redeploy the application. I'll say right click, run as Java. My dear friends, how many beans? Telesco, tourist service once, tourist service twice. Are you seeing this? Why twice? One time I'm asking to inject here. One time I'm asking to inject here. So how much ever time you are injecting, how much ever time you are performing dependence injection, that many beans are getting created. Point number one, clear to everyone? That means every time you're using the bean, every time you want that to be injected, that many beans will be created. Suppose this bean you want to use in 10 places. If you're using this bean in 10 places, how many beans of this class will be created, guys, in the IOC container? 10 times. No confusion there, every one of you. I would not perform the dependency injection here. I would not perform. No dependency injection. I would like to save this. I would like to save this. No dependency injection. And I want you to observe here. Go back here. Guys, are you getting any message that tourist services bean is creating? So if the scope is prototype, it promotes eager initialization or it promotes lazy initialization. That means if you're not using that bean, if you're not going to use, will my Spring IOC container create instance of that, create a bean of that? Now coming to prototype, what is the case we have seen, guys? Tell me what you have understood. In the prototype, it supports eager or lazy? Lazy initialization. Point number 2. Everyone in the class. Point number 2. One bean okay, I'll say here. Every time bean is used, that is, dependency injection is performed, a new bean will be created in IOC container. All of you, do you agree on this? If you perform 100 times dependency injection, how many beans? 100 beans. One note I would like to add. Default scope of all beans is what, guys? What is the default scope of all the beans? Singleton. So whatever we have seen so far, have those who are listening to me with utmost focus, have you all understood? Because this is interview as questions, guys. If you can't answer these questions, they will consider that you don't even know fundamentals of Spring. Everyone. Then we have 2 more scopes. Number 1, request scope. Number 2, session scope. This request and session scope we apply usually to our controller, to our API methods, to our APIs. Okay. I would like to use it. So if you use, of course, what will happen, everyone knows, two beans will be created because the scope is prototype. Now I'll go back here to my API. When the task is over, Anil, before the IOC container gets closed, these beans will be destroyed. We have seen that in the bean life cycle. You need not to manually do that. Okay. I'll go back, guys, to maybe this class. I'll go here. I will say scope, scope, scope. And I would like to say here request. I've told request. I would like to go and say tourist API bin is created. Right now, what is the scope of tourist API, guys? Is it singleton or is it request? Singleton, right? Every one of you? Oh, it's a request. Great. I would like to go back here, right click, run as Spring Boot application. Kindly observe here, my dear friends. Have you got anywhere tourist REST API been created? Have you got that message? So request scope supports eager loading, eager initialization or lazy initialization? Lazy initialization. That means unless and until you don't use that bean, will there be bean creation of it if you don't use it? When this controller bean will be used, whenever there is a HTTP request. If there is a HTTP request to any of the endpoint, when dispatch as servlet will invoke the any of the method, only that time it will be created. That is, even only in that time the bean is getting used. All of you agree with this? If there is a request, now what is the endpoint? I'll go back here and check any of the endpoint, guys. Maybe I'll say a register tourist. Okay. I'll say maybe get all tourist info. I'll make a request, guys. I'll go to my Postman tool. It's deployed in which port number? 8484 context path is students management API. I'll go back to Postman tool. 8484. Okay. I'll say. Okay. I think this is the case. All right. So I would like to go and make a request. Guys, if I'm making the request, I'm getting. And the most important part which you have to understand here is this one. After making the request, excuse me, guys. Kindly observe here. Guys, are you getting this? Tourist API getting created? Yes, no, maybe. After I made a request, now I'll make one more request. Maybe this time I'll make a request to update tourist or whatever. Let me go and check the history here. Okay. For an example, I'll make a request to this. See, updated successfully. Now I want you to see here the code, the console. Guys, one more time, are you able to see? Yes, no, maybe. Now, I want all of you to answer me one thing here. I want everyone to answer me one thing. That what is the default behavior of the request scope is promotes eager initialization or lazy, guys? Lazy. Second point, bean will be created every time there is a request to application. Yes, no, maybe. Only on HTTP request. All of you. If I make example, if continuously people are making some 100 calls to the API, how many beans will be created back the no behind the scene? 100. 200 requests, 200. Similar to request, my dear friends, we have one more scope called as session. Every time, forget about what we have seen right now, scopes part. Every time you make call to any of the application, guys, behind the scene, one session ID will be created. That means for first time when you're making request to any of the application, one session ID will be made. And after which, if you can make 100 requests to the same application, same session ID will be used. That means it is the same guy who's using or who's invoking all the services. That's the meaning of it. Like similar use case of this in the Spring security part, next week, Thursday, Friday, I will discuss how session ID can be used for the authentication and authorization, and what exactly this is. You'll get the clarity. If you have watched the videos of servlets, there also have talked about the session ID. You might able to recall. If not, in the Spring security also, I'm going to talk or use the session ID part. Now, every time you make or first visit to application, session ID is created, and same session ID used for all the continuous requests you are making to the application. So for 100 requests, continuous requests you are making to the application, how many session ID is getting used, guys? How many? As I have told you, only one. Fine. Great. Now, based on whatever you have seen or whatever I've explained, I'll go back and I'll make the scope here. Instead of request, I'll make the scope as session. I'll make the scope as session. I'll go back here and say session. I would like to save this. After saving, I'm going to deploy. After saying, I'm going to redeploy the application. I have redeployed, guys, and I want you to observe every one of you. Have you got anywhere tourist REST API been created? Have you got this? So tell me, guys, supports what? Lazy or eager? Lazy initialization. And one more point I want you to observe here. I'll go back. This is my application, right? I'll go back to my Postman tool. I am making the request number 1. The moment I have made the request, please understand here, bean is getting created. See here, is the bean getting created, guys? Yes, no, maybe? All of you? Great. I'll go back to my Postman tool. I'll make one more request. I've made the request. But see here, have you got one more bean of tourist REST API getting created? One more bean. That means, can I come to one conclusion that bean will be created upon first HTTP request to application and irrespective of how many requests made, only one bean only one bean will be used. Can I come to this conclusion? One bean per session. Per session. Suppose if I log out, if the session ID is expired, if I log out, session ID is expired. Again, if you're making a request, one bean will be created. One bean for the entire session. Request and session. Have you understood the difference or any ambiguity, guys, to anyone? Request and session. Any ambiguity to anyone in the class? Any confusion? All of you present in the class? So, guys, just to conclude, and this is important with respect to interview, use cases are many. Every application will not be used this. So usually most 95% of the cases, Pramod, we go with the default. And what is the default scope, every one of you? Singleton. We don't usually change it. Fine. And going forward, some of this I might use, but it's not that everyone will use it. Hardly we might use the prototype because you don't want to, create the beans unnecessarily. And I have one question to every one of you. That what is the default container which Spring Boot follows? It supports easier, lazy initialization. Eager or lazy? Eager. Can you change it to, even though application context is being used, can you change it to lazy? Lazy initialization. Can you make your beans behave like a lazy? All of you. Great. So can we say that if the larger number of requests are there, session created is good and request is also good? No, session creation is good. See here, very simple. If you want to handle the temporary data, okay, whenever you're making a single request to some APIs example, in that case, going with the request scope will be good. Wherein you're just making one call to one request to the APIs, third party APIs and all of that. However, if you have a plan of manipulating the data multiple times, maybe after you logged into the application, you have a plan of updating many requests you have to make to the application. In that case, go with the scopes. First of all, the beans will not be created in the IOC container. Memory will not be used unless and until there is a need of it. So if you want to achieve lazy initialization, that means you want the beans to be created only if there is a need of it. If there is no need of it, you don't want unnecessary beans to be created. So only if there is a request to the application, that time you want your beans to be created. And if you have a plan of making multiple requests from the same user for the multiple requests for updates, deletes or something, then go with the session, wherein for first time when they make a request to the application, bean will be created in the IOC container and same bean will be used throughout all the requests the same user or same client is making to your application. Are you all understanding? Yes, no, maybe. Yep. And very, very important in e-commerce app, you can say, Pramod. And very, very important here is After the task of particular request is over, you don't want that bean also to be there in the IOC container. Then go with the request, because every time you make a new request, a new bean will be created. Existing bean will not be created across the request. Okay, so that is one of the benefit of request. But very often you can go with scope or the singleton. All right. Allow me a minute. Apology, guys. From the last 3 4 classes, due to the bad health, so many disturbances between the classes. I'm really thankful that you guys have cooperated me to the best of you. Okay. Oh. And you'll understand more once I start the Spring Security, guys, wherein about the sessions I'll show you. What is exactly session? Most of you might not know also. Okay. Great. So, guys, if you want to maintain a separate bean for every request, what is the scope you have to go with? If you want to maintain a bean or a data different for every request, what is the scope? How do you make data to be managed differently for different requests in Java or in Spring Boot application? You have to make the scope as a request. That is the way they'll ask the question. Okay. If you want to manage the data across multiple HTTP requests, then session. Okay. Example as Pramod says, e-commerce, shopping cart data, where first time if you get in, one bean will be created, after which for multiple same cart you are maintaining, right? Same cart for all the requests you're maintaining, right? So that could be one of the use case of it. Okay, now. So if you don't want to share the data or bean for multiple requests, I mean across the multiple requests, different requests, then you have to go with the request scope. All right. These two we apply usually to the controller. Great. Fine now. Yes. All of you. Now coming back to other fundamentals which I have to talk here is about see that is per session, because every time you log into any of the banking application you can use all the features for a specific period of time. After some 3 4 5 minutes of time, if there is no activity, if you try to do suddenly one activity, it will say you have logged out, your session is expired, try to log in again, right? That's where session comes into picture. All right, guys. One more important thing which you need to understand here is about application dot properties versus application dot YAML file. Yet another markup language dot YML. Have you heard of YAML files anywhere? Uh, right now we are doing all the application configurations in the application dot properties files, right? Okay. So can anyone tell me what is the use of application.properties file? First of all, the questions, what is the use of this? Why do we use this? Anyone in the class? To configure various settings and properties of our application, correct? Such as database configuration, Kafka configuration, Redis configuration, server configuration, all the configurations of our application we usually do within the application.properties file. Whatever you can do in the application.properties file, same can also be done in the application.yaml file. .yaml also same thing can be done. Whatever we have seen, same thing can be done in the .yaml file also. Yes, no? All of you? Now the question comes here is, what is the difference between these two? I'll just have to do one thing here. I'll open, uh, go back to this. Allow me 1 minute of time, okay? I'm opening one more ID, guys, which looks like Eclipse only, which is Spring Tool Suite. Okay. One second. If you have added the plugin also in the STS, this is STS, which looks like Eclipse only, guys. No difference. Structure is like Eclipse only. Any project you open for an instance, any project if you open, example, if there is already application.yaml is what I have used here. Let me see if any application where application, yeah. You can see here application.properties I have used here. All of you. Where the data will be configured in the form of key and value pair. This is key and this is value. Everyone in the class. And the advantage of STS is, you can see, guys, if I say here Spring dot, it is only giving me suggestions of the properties. If I say data source, are you able to see here? It is only giving the suggestions of all the properties which you need not to recall. If you integrate this STS in your Eclipse also will give Eclipse also will behave same. So you can add the plugin of Spring Tool Suite in your Eclipse IDs also. And if you add so, then it will also behave like STS. All these options will be available in the Eclipse ID also. Okay. Now the data will be configured inside the application.properties in the form of key value pairs. And if I have to go back, please see here, right click, you have an option here, convert dot properties to dot YAML file. Convert dot properties to dot YAML file. I will convert to dot YAML file. I will say OK here. The data here will be represented in the hierarchical format, and indent spacing plays very, very important role here. Indent spacing means the spacing which you have here. YAML file is not specific to Java. It is universal format. But application.properties is specific to Java applications, Spring Boot applications. Dot properties extension you cannot see anywhere apart from the Spring Boot applications. Wherein YAML file is not specific to Java. YAML is universal. For Java application, Python application, .NET application, for Ansibles, for Kubernetes, and so, everywhere you will see the YAML file. Docker, Ansible, Kubernetes, everywhere you will see this. It is not a generic to the configurations which we do inside the YAML file is not specific to Spring Boot. Okay, it is universal. Ident spacing is very, very important. What do you mean by that? See here, guys. If I have to tell you the basic example before I write some key points here. Whatever configuration we write in the application dot properties in this style, Spring dot data source dot URL equals to so and so, so and so. Spring dot data source dot, I will say here, the username equals to so and so, so and so. Spring dot data source dot password equals to, specify, right? Same thing in the YAML file. If you have to say dot properties, this is dot properties. Same thing if you want to say in the YAML file, yet another markup language, dot YML file. Everyone please see. We write something like this. First time we write Spring. Go below. 1, 2 spacing. From the third character, it is colon. Data source. Then we write colon. Then go below. 1, 2, leave it. From the third space, URL. We specify the URL. Again, you need not to start with Spring and data source. Once you have already written this, you need not to say Spring data source or nothing. No. What is the parent? Parent of URL is data source and Spring. Parent of username is also data source and Spring. Parent of password is also data source and Spring. You need not write once again. Again, go back to the same level. Leave 2 spaces. Go back to the same level. Here I can say username, password. See, this is how we write it. If I have to go back here, are you able to observe, guys? See here, Spring is a parent for data source also, right? Only one Spring has been written. Spring application name. Again, we did not start it with Spring again. 2 spaces we have left. To the third R, we have started with data source. Again, one more time, we did not write data source. To the third, 2 spaces, the third character, password. Parent for password is also Spring.data source. We did not write once again. Parent for URL is also same. Parent for username is also same. But for JPA, parent is Spring, not the data source. So for JPA, you can see here, directly it is like a data source position, not in the password position. Why? Because parent of JPA is not data source, it is Spring directly. One more time, you did not write Spring. So this ident spacing is very, very, very important here. If I have to go back to my application.properties, example, I would like to stop this application. I would like to go back to my application.properties here. Kindly see here, guys, all of you. Same thing if you want to write, forget, maybe I'll forget about this. This is not there. Assume that it's not there. Okay. Same thing if you want to write in the YAML file, guys. How do we write? Server. Excuse me, guys. It's very difficult to take the class when your health is not good. Apology for all the disturbance. All right, guys. Really sorry. Yeah. Guys, same thing if I have to discuss. This is in right now. Is it a dot properties syntax, right? Key value pair. See a server I have written, colon. Server I have written, colon. Next, how many spaces, guys? 1, 2. 2 spaces. Third place, I will write port, colon. I will write 8484. Syntax, correct? Every one of you. This is dot properties. This is dot YAML. Done, right? Same thing if I have to do. I'll go back here. I will say server, colon. Next line. Server, colon. Next line. 1, 2. In the third position, I will write servlet, colon. Next line, 1, 2. Third position I will write context path. And I'm going to write within the colon. I'll specify what I have to write here. All of you are there? Yes, no, maybe. I would like to just say here. The difference, are you all understanding, guys? Now coming to the data source, guys. Same thing if you want to write it. Suppose same thing if you have to write. I'll go back here. How many times do I need to write Spring here? How many times I need to write Spring? I'll say Spring. Colon I will write. Next line. 1, 2. 2 spaces. Third position I will write data source. Data source. Colon. 1, 2. Third position I will write URL. I'll specify the URL. Now for username, do I need to start again from the Spring data source, guys? What is the parent for username and password? What is the parent for username and password? Spring and data source, right? I'll go back here. Can I start from the same position once again? Can I start like this? Can I start like this, guys? Because the parent root is same. And of course, you should not be writing here this. You should writing not equal to. Rather, what you have to write here? Colon. Colon. Now again, guys, if I have to write this, parent Spring is common, right? Spring parent is common. Do I need to write from the Spring? No, right? But for this, is the data source also parent? Is the data source also parent? Only Spring is there. So JPA should be at what level? Should it be at the URL level or should it be at the data source level? Data source level. I'll go back next line. Spring is there. 1, 2. I'll write JPA colon. 1, 2. I'll say here hibernate. Hibernate colon. 1, 2. DDL auto equals to update. Have you all understood the difference between YAML file and the application.properties file? Everyone in the class? Yes, no, maybe. Everyone? Are you all there? Syntax. According to you guys, which one are you feeling comfortable? Are you comfortable with the YAML file or you are comfortable with the .properties file? What is your stance? Which is more easy for you? What do you feel as a developer? It's your choice and you can make a call. Fine, all of you. So widely used in the industry is .yaml file because YAML is not specific to Java or Spring Boot. It is generic and many of them are already comfortable with the YAML file. But if you use .properties, there is no harm in that. So why YAML? Because it is used across the technologies, across the stacks, not specific to only Java. The syntax is familiar. No change of performance there. So we are getting the mixture of answers that .properties, YAML properties. But any rocket science, guys, YAML is it something like, I cannot even understand something as such? No, right? I mean, it's not that much difficult that you cannot understand. Okay, it's not that much difficult that you cannot even understand. That's not the case. So I hope the difference with respect to syntax you have already seen it. Fine now. .properties and .yaml file. Now just to add a few points here. .properties dot let me first add this point here. What is the purpose I need to add first? Or maybe let me add the key points in the text format only. It will be readable at least. Better than my handwriting. Okay. I would like to go here and add a few points here just to see these points, guys, and acknowledge if this is your understanding or what. In Spring Boot application, we use application dot properties or dot YAML file to configure our application properties. For an example, which are the properties, guys? Data source, server properties, Kafka, so and so, so and so, so and so. All the configurations we write within this, correct? Now coming to the dot properties file, dot properties, dot properties file, we will have data represent represented in key value format. Correct? One more point. Dot properties file is there only for Java Spring Boot application. Now coming to the YAML file. Okay. Guys, YAML is universal. Can I say here? Universal format. You can use this to Java application, Python application, a .NET C# application, Ansible, Kubernetes, and so and so. Docker. Many places you will use this .yaml format. It is not specific to one Java or Spring Boot application. YAML file will represent data in hierarchical format. Ident space indent spacing is very important in YAML file. Example, what do you mean by that? If you mismatch this spacing, whatever you have given here, no. If you mismatch that spacing, whatever you're giving here, in place of 2, if you give 3 space and write in the 4, it will not take it. It will not even consider that property. The spacing, the pair example Spring you have already written here. One more time, if you're in Spring, it will not take it. So this spacing is very, very crucial in the YAML file. So tell me, guys, syntax of this, anyone has any complexity? YAML is so hard, rocket science or something? No, right? All of you in the class? Okay. Now going back, we have two important things which I had to discuss, which is HTTP request object and HTTP response. Practical use of this also in the Spring security part, I'm going to do it, wherein you'll understand these things. As I've told you, whenever you are returning something, if we return directly the raw data as a response, Are we able to receive that, guys, when we are tested using the Postman tool? Have you got the data in the form of JSON? Yes, no? Every one of you. But I have told you not to do so. Please write within one object called as, please don't send the data. Please send the object, which is, what is the object we use, guys, which we return the data? In the response entity. Agree? Understand this. When it comes to HTTP request, HTTP request object, three things are there. Number one, request URL. Request URL, which consists of two things. The actual request type, whether it is a GET request, POST request, PUT request, DELETE request, and also the actual URL which will reach to the endpoint. It also consists of request header. Request header, which talks about the metadata. Metadata means information about the request. This request is carrying JSON data or XML data. Or this request is carrying what? Information about this request. What type of request it is. What type of data this request is carrying. All this information about the request header. And I'll be fetching also information from these things going forward in our Spring security applications. And we have something called as request body. Request body, which consists of the actual data information, which also called as payload. Payload referring to the information. Example, in the post request, whatever body you give, right? Request body from the Postman tool. This is only payload. Guys, if I have to go to any of the post request, we go with body, right? This is the payload. This is the request body. This is the request header. How much is the length? What is the type of content type is what it is expecting. Information about this request body, which is a payload, the actual information, and the request URL. Type of the request and exact URL. Yes, no, maybe. All of you present in the class. When it comes to HTTP response, there also we have three things. Number one, response line, we say. Response line, which consists of status code and status message. Number two, response header, which has information about the response, metadata. Number three, the payload, the response body. So if you are sending the response, if you send only response body, then the receiver might not receive extra information about how this response is, what and all it is giving me. Have you seen status code, guys, before? Please understand this also. It is also important. HTTP status code. Very often we have come across with this. When it is success, that means whatever request you have made, you are receiving the data. The status code is okay. That's the message. And the status message is okay. The code is from 200 to 299, which you can say 2xx. From the family of 2, if you are getting something, that means the server is giving you information correctly. Everything is working fine. Getting it? Whenever there is a client type of mistake, client error, which is bad request, maybe they are giving the wrong ID to access any of the data. It's a bad request. The family will be the status code will be from 400 to 499. All the 4x6 family, if you are getting the status code, that means the way you have made the request is wrong. For the particular endpoint or the resource you are trying to reach, that is not the way to reach. Somewhere there is a mistake in the request you are making. It's a bad request. That's not the right request. Fine. If it is a server error, that means your request might have been correct. If it is a server error, maybe some problem in the backend application itself, then the response code which you will be getting is from the 500 family. If you are getting, it's all about the information which you are sending, it is from the family of 100 to 1 dot dot. If it is about redirection, that means if your request is getting redirected to one more request behind the scene by the application, it is about the family of 300. So 404 not found. That means the way you have made the request is wrong. The request is bad. That's not the way to reach out to a particular endpoint or a particular resource which you are trying to access. If you want to also send the status code to the receiver alongside the actual data, alongside the actual payload, then we have to go all these three things. If you want to give it to your client, to a REST client, then you have to wrap the payload within the response entity. Within the response entity. Through this response entity, you can give the status code also, some message also, the actual response body also. Fine, every one of you? Yes, no, maybe? If I have to go back to this application, guys, kindly see here, all of you present in the class. I'll go back to my web app for an example. I'll go back here. Maybe see here. All of you, after we receive the data, take it. Example, if I have to take this example, maybe. Okay. We are getting the data in the form of response entity. And from this response entity, if I have to say here, response dot get, if I say, are you getting, guys? Get header, get code, get the body. Get the headers, get the status code, get the body. That means if you give only body, if you send directly only the ticket object, can you get all this information about the response? Will you be able to fetch it? Are you there, guys? Everyone. Right now I got just the body. So only I'm telling response.get body, which is giving me about this information. Anyone and everyone in the class? Any ambiguity here? Any confusion? Because there is no response here from all of you. Very. So why to use response entity, have you understood, guys? But without using, can we send the payload directly to the client? Without using the response entity, can we send the payload to the client directly? Can we? Yes. Can we? Possibility is there. When it comes to possibility, did I not do that in our applications? Did I not do that? We have done that, right? See here. Here I'm using response entity. Here I'm using direct. Any issues we got? Have we not got the response? Good morning, good morning. Both the cases. We have got it, right? But out of two, which one is recommended, guys? If you want to give a proper response to the client, which one is recommended out of two? Giving directly payload or giving the headers and status code information alongside the payload? Only payload or payload plus response headers plus status code? It is all three, which is response entity, not the payload directly. Not the payload directly. Give in the response entity. Don't directly just give the payload. Fine. These things will be used very practical also. I'm going to use this in the upcoming Spring classes. In our Spring security classes, you will see very often where we are fetching, especially in the token based authentications. this request objects and all, you should be knowing it. We are going to use it practically. How to fetch the data and all, you will see going forward in our applications also. Fine, guys. HTOs I had to discuss, but considering the time, Monday I'll start HTOs and the REST API, unit testing. And the Monday's class, HTOs followed by REST API unit testing will be taught using the mocking with Mockito. All this will be taught there. Okay. All these things we are discussed here in today's class. Fine. Hmm. Prakash, I think I've shared you the credentials. I will share, Ganesh. I had created already, I had showed you that day. After that, I got sick and I could not create further. Guys, rest of you, are you able to access my Udemy course for the link which I have shared with you? Yes, right. No problem. You have not received a. Okay, let me just share you. Allow, wait for 2 minutes. Okay, I'll just share you. And Suresh is asking one question. What is that, Suresh? When to use HTTP? What is that? When we will get 100 to 199? It is informational responses. I mean to say that if you're getting the status something like that at the client end, as a client, if you're making a request to any of the API, and if the status code which you're receiving is from 100 to 199, any of the family of hundreds, you have to understand that the request is still being processed. It is getting handled successfully. There is no issue in the server. Maybe it is taking some time. That it's getting processed. It will give you no data. That's the meaning of it. What is the timing of weekend DevOps? 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. January 3rd week, most probably on the 18th. January 3rd week, 9 a.m. to 12. It is DevOps plus AWS. The content will be from the scratch. First, we'll talk fundamentals of applications. No prerequisite for this. What is microservice, monolith? What type of applications are built in the industry? All these things. Then we'll start with the Linux commands, shell scripting. Then we shall start with the AWS. I will discuss around 12 AWS services. AWS, it is not specific to any of the certification. This is designed for the real use of this AWS and DevOps tool as a developer or as a DevOps engineer or a cloud engineer. Like, what is your task? Like, what you should be knowing it, not specific to exam, not formality based exam. But after knowing this, if you prepare separately for a little bit by practicing the exam papers, you can crack the exams also. But the real use of this, like as a cloud or DevOps engineer, what you will be doing it. That's out there. This is a 4 months course. I'll start from the Linux shell scripting, AWS, then Git and GitHub will be taught, Maven will be taught, right? Dockers, Kubernetes, Jenkins, Ansible, Terraform, all this will be discussed inside this course. It's from the back end only, Akash. I don't know about the course fees. It's only on weekends. 4 months only on weekends. Guys, module number one, I'll talk on the software projects in general, SDLC, DevOps fundamentals, how we develop the application, general things, because no prerequisites are there. Second part I will discuss is on Linux operating system and the scripting. Then we shall discuss on the AWS. Okay. Wherein all the services of the AWS, general AWS overview, then the regions and availability zones, then EC2, then Elastic Block Store, okay, AWS Load Balancer, auto scaling, then simple storage service, then relational database service, then Elastic File System, identity and access management, virtual private cloud, cloud formations, okay, command line interface for the AWS, Elastic Beanstalk, AWS Lambdas, right? Then the Elastic Kubernetes services, then the DNS, which is Route 53, then the CloudWatch, simple notification server, billing overview, all this will be discussed. After which Git and GitHub, Maven, Docker, Kubernetes, Jenkins, SonarQube for the code review, Ansible, and we shall discuss two projects and also the interview questions and tips discussion. January 3rd weekend for 4 months. It's 12 only because I'm not sure about the costing. Naveen sir has to decide, make a call, but there will be discounts for the existing students. Even doesn't matter what is listed on the board. You have to reach out to our team. For the ones who have already seen Telesco's courses earlier, the prices will always be different. You have to just reach out to our team. So don't worry about the prices which you see on your screen. Okay. This is a 4 months intensive course, guys. 2 months I'm creating this content. I have worked, I have used in these technologies. I had to discuss so many of my friends. Sir had to discuss with industry experts. The content verification had gone through a next level. And after so much of discussions and considerations and guidance, we shortlisted what is needed. And generally, as a day in and day out life of a cloud and DevOps engineer, what we have to do, everything we had to, and you should, which you should be aware of it. We have included in this course. Okay. And one more Java plus Spring Boot batch, most probably second week of January, weekday batch, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. night, weekday batch, Monday to Thursday only. Java plus Spring plus microservices. So what I'm sharing right now. Mm. All right, guys, the code files which we have discussed in today's class and the board work which we had, both I have shared in the chat. It will be also uploaded in the dashboard. Thank you so much for joining me in today's class. Next week, Monday's class, what is the topic? Hate use and REST API unit testing. Tuesday's class, Spring Boot and React integration, followed by Spring Boot plus Redis server. And Wednesday's class, how to process the bulk data, batch processing we shall discuss. And then the Thursday's class, we shall start with the AOP, and most probably on the Friday, Spring Security. Next to next week, Spring Security will go on, followed by the microservices. Both of them are totally different, Manikanta. We'll discuss. Dependency is a library. It's a different thing. Plugging is you are not going to write the code by using predefined part. You're just going to integrate. Thank you, guys. Thank you again, every one of you.